Welcome to Mind Bending Monday. Thanks for joining us. I'm really excited that you're here. Today is the first episode of Perplexing Placement Puzzles. There's a blog with a little bit more information about what these puzzles are and why we use them. But the one thing you need to know today is that there are not several levels of this type of puzzle. It's pretty challenging, and the way that you'll scaffold for your students is by the time that you give them and the questions that you ask. So, are you ready? Let's get started. Perplexing Placement Puzzles, Episode 1. So if this is new to you, you are going to love these puzzles, and the thinking skills are amazing. But there are some things we'll have to address right at the beginning. So let's get started. Ben put 5 of his favorite books on a shelf, and each book cover was a solid color. Use the clues to determine where each book was located on the shelf. So one of the issues you will probably have right away, because I've used these for almost 30 years with students, is the first puzzle that they solve, they will want to use the clues in order. They'll think the information needs to be used in the order in which it's listed, which is not necessarily the most efficient. But that's what we're going to do today, because that's the issue that you'll probably have. So we're going to do it that way, and then at the end we'll reflect with students on whether or not that was necessary and what might have been more efficient. The other 2 issues that you'll have are with labels and communication. So let's talk through that. When they first start to talk about it, even with the first clue, the white book was not on either end, but it was to the right of the green book. Well, how can I communicate which books are on the ends without pointing? It all goes back to labels and ways that we can communicate. So you want students to come up with that need through questioning, maybe have them point to the wrong book, but eventually they'll probably come up with using numbers. If they suggest letters, that might work, except they'll probably realize very quickly it won't work with this puzzle, because they are going to want to use letters when you talk about communicating colors. But they'll figure that out. So, how can we write about the colors? Do I want to write the word white every time I talk about white? What colors are in the puzzle? White, green, red, blue, yellow? Those all have a different beginning letter. So maybe I can just use the first letter of the color to represent the color. Okay, let's get started. The white book was not on either end. So the white book was not in position 1 or 5. But it, or the white book, was to the right of the green book. So white is to the right of green. Well, was it right next to the green book? Were there 1, 2, 3 books in between? What do you know? So then you'll have another issue with communication. So let's talk about how we can solve that. I know that Peter is to the right of Anna, but I also know that Jose is to the right of Anna. How are those similar and how are they different? You want students to start to recognize that they need symbols to be able to identify when things are directly next to each other or when they're just somewhere in that direction. Once they identify that need, the symbol itself is unimportant. So I tell students, I have loved these puzzles since I was your age. Here are the symbols that I use. You're welcome to use mine, or you can create your own. It's been really fun for almost 30 years to watch. Some students use mine, some students use their own. It doesn't really matter. So my symbols are, I use a line to show it is somewhere in that direction. And I use 2 dots to show it is directly next to. So let's go back and use those symbols with our puzzle. I don't know it's right next to it. I just know it's somewhere in that direction. Okay, let's go to the next clue. Both the red and blue books were to the left of the yellow book. So if here's the yellow book, I know the red and the blue are over here. But if I write it like this, what's the problem with that? What does it look like? And they'll say, well, it looks like red is first. Do you know that? No, don't know, so that won't work. Well, I could do it like this. Does that work? No, because that looks like blue is first. How can I write red and blue to indicate that I don't really know which order they're in? That's the question you ask students. How do you write that so it doesn't look like one is first, because you don't know that yet? And eventually, once again, you want them to come up with this. I'm going through it quickly, but you're questioning, they'll have to stop and think. But most of the time, that someone will come up with, let's write them vertically. Then you don't really know. Perfect. Okay, what else do I know? What's the next clue? None of the primary colors, or none of the books that were primary colors, were next to each other. Well, how many primary colors do I have? I have red, yellow, and blue. What numbers would they have to be if I have 3 books and none of them are touching? So your students will eventually figure that out. 1, 3, and 5. I have that same problem. If I put red, yellow, blue, it looks like this. What can I do? Let them talk through it. Those have to be vertical also. Do you notice anything? I notice that if red and blue are to the left of yellow and they're in 1, 3, and 5, what do you know? And you want your students to see that yellow, the 5th book, has to be yellow. So I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to cross out 5, cross out yellow, and I'm going to say this is yellow. I know that has to be yellow. Okay, good. 1 down. The yellow book was to the right of the green book. I kind of already know that. The white book and the blue book were not next to each other. Now that's pretty helpful because I don't know where blue is, but what do I know? Okay, it has to be, and you want the students to figure this out, it has to be 1 or 3. The white can't be 1. So the white also can't be 1 or 3. So the white has to be 2 or 4. Well, what else do you know? If I know that white has to be either 2 or 4, but I know that green is to the left of white. If white is 2, what would that mean? Well, that would mean green would have to be 1. Does that work? No, because it's not a primary color. So what do I know? White can't be 2, so white would have to be 4. And now I know the blue book does not touch the white book. So that means the blue book is either 1 or 2. But now you know the blue book is either 1 or 3. So what does that mean? The blue book has to be 1. And so what does that mean for red? The red book has to be 3. And what does that mean for book number 2? What's the only book that's left? Well, let's see. I have white. I have red, blue, and yellow. The only book that is left is green. So that is your solution, and that is the order of your books. Blue, green, red, white, yellow. Now that seems pretty challenging, and it is, but it's a great way to help students really start thinking about these specific types of puzzles. Give them some clues where they can draw out the answers. And there are different ways to solve it. If they had started, for example, with this third clue, it might have been a little easier for them because then they would know blue, red, and yellow were primary colors. Blue, red, and yellow. So they would have known that green and white had to be 2 and 4. And then this other clue right here would have been so much easier because when they know that green and white are 2 and 4, but they also know that green is to the left of white, you solve that right away. So there are ways to do that are much easier. So you want to reflect on that so that students start to see, I really need to evaluate which clues are most important and do those first. These puzzles are challenging and they're engaging. They promote perseverance and higher level thinking skills. I hope you and your students love them as much as I do. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and we hope this is helpful. We value your thoughts and your input, so we're giving away a prize every month. To enter, you can just submit your comments on either the website, Twitter, or Facebook. You'll be entered to win on every platform. So you can enter up to 3 times in 1 week, and you can enter every week. So we hope you'll participate, and we will let you know who wins. Official rules are on the website. But thank you again, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe so that you don't miss a single episode of Mind Bending Mondays. Thanks so much. We look forward to seeing you next week.